Andrea, thank you so much for being here and being our guest today. We're excited to have
I'm
you.
excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah. Let's dive right into things. Let's start off by giving the audience a little bit of an idea of what sparked your interest in starting or inspired you to start your organization and stay in recruiting for the amount of time you've been in it.
Sure. So I started my own firm, Cardea Group, in 2009. It was right after the financial crisis. And I felt, and my business partner at the time felt, there was a big gap in terms of the service being offered to both sides of the equation, both candidates and clients. It was a rough time for a lot of people who were found without jobs and struggling to just locate where the opportunities were. And we had worked for a firm that was very client centric, and I am still very client centric. I didn't think that that needed to be at the expense of a candidate experience.
Yeah,
So we started Cardea Group to really elevate the experience in terms of both candidate and client, to offer what we consider a white glove service where everybody feels very heard and seen throughout the interview and recruitment process.
yeah. That's
And
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, please
thank you.
keep going.
Sorry, I think you also asked what has kept me in it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been recruiting for a long time, 20 years now,
Mhm.
and it's certainly the people. So in terms of gets me up every day and what keeps me inspired is every life that we touch is not just touching that one. It's the organization is affected, the hired person is affected, their families, and the power of having that influence on what can be life-changing career moves as part of what you help people guide people towards is phenomenal. And I love it. And I love the people and the relationships we've been able to cultivate over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, it makes it fun when you're able to deal with people more than anything else, right? I mean, I completely agree, but I appreciate you saying that. And I'm curious, just so that our listeners know when they
Sure.
tune into this in the future, who's your typical client and your typical candidate so they can get a good idea of where you're coming from.
Absolutely. So our firm focuses exclusively on buy-side investment management firms. So these are hedge funds, private equity firms, private credit, venture capital, and family offices. And
Mhm.
then more specifically, we have a specialty in the legal and compliance vertical. So these are chief compliance officers, general counsels, attorneys, whether they're on the M&A side or the fund formation side. And we do staff everything from associate to C-suite executives. But as a retained search firm, we tend to be securing individuals from the senior associate upwards. So predominantly on the higher level or more executive level.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. That's always great to hear. As majority of the executives listening, well, it's good for them to know where you're coming from. But I think a lot of things we're going to talk about will be applicable in a lot of different industries as well. But
I hope
thank you
so.
for answering that. And I'm curious, let's dive into the first question here. What trends are you seeing when in hiring in the sectors that you place in?
In the sectors that I place in, so again, quite niche, so it might not be as applicable, but the firms that we work with, so hedge funds, private equity firms, they're hiring at the C-suite, the general counsels and chief compliance officers a bit earlier in their life cycles than they have historically, meaning we call it a critical mass when these firms hit a billion, 2 billion, 5 billion. These are critical mass or sizes that they hit in terms of their assets under management, where they'll bring in separate C-suite executives. And so we're seeing that tipping point is coming a bit earlier because of the need for strategic and focused executives in these particular verticals, whether it's a chief financial officer, chief compliance officer, chief operating officer. Many of these firms, when they first launch or when they first get off the ground, have these dually or triple hatted individuals who serve all two or three functions, and now they're bifurcating them a bit earlier in their life cycle.
Okay. Okay. And so just to make sure I'm understanding that correctly, so you're saying they're kind of branching out into bringing on other executives to focus on their individual areas sooner than typical,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. And are you seeing any negative side effects to that?
I mean, for them, there's more sorry, cost to headcount, but it also ensures a better quality of life for these individuals that otherwise are managing too many verticals and probably putting out too many fires. They're being a lot more reactive in their seats versus proactive. When you hire people that are spearheading the initiatives of their particular vertical, whether it's finance or compliance or legal, they can stay in their lane more or less
Yeah.
and be a bit more proactive. So I think there's a lot more upside to it, which is probably what's prompting it, aside from additional kind of there's been less SEC scrutiny with the new administration.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot more uh, there are a lot more funds that are launching and firms that are getting off the ground with these C-suite executives that then they can bifurcate those positions thereafter.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. I wasn't planning on asking you this question. So bear with me. And if you don't have don't even worry about it. Right. But I'm
Okay.
curious because I hear a lot about fractional work. We've had some
Mm.
fractional executive recruiters on our podcast. With this direction that you're seeing, this new trend, are you seeing an uptick in fractional work? So they can kind of split that like we were talking about, but not have to worry about the overhead or the cost associated with a full-time executive.
Yeah, we have worked on several of those searches actually,
Yeah. Okay.
and but not as many as you'd think.
Yeah.
Because what we find, or what these firms find, is when they put pen to paper about what they want this person to handle,
Mhm.
it starts off as we only need 20 hours a week. So we can hire someone, a fractional CCO, a fractional GC.
Yeah.
But when the person gets in there, again, many of these folks have been doing reactive work where they're just
Mhm.
addressing whatever's coming at them. But if they want to put in place a best in class program, you need a bit more time and
Yeah.
resources allocated to it. So it's not as common in my world as it might be in some other industries.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really interesting. The reason I bring it up too is I just got one of our previous guests, Henning Schwinnem. He
Mhm.
does fractional recruiting for sales leaders, right? And he
Okay.
talked about how there's some stats floating around about fractional work that actually their team went and they can't find it being backed up by actual research. It's more people pushing that, hey, fractional work's on the uptick. But
Oh,
I love hearing your thoughts there because it might not be, right? Like the
okay.
you're
Yeah.
not seeing it as much. So that's really interesting. Thank you for bearing with me on that.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
let's dive into this other thought that I've got here. When you're working with executives, what qualities make candidates stand out in such a competitive space?
I think it really depends on the hiring firm and what their priorities are.
Yeah.
In my experience, though, I think there's a fine line between humility and I'm sorry, confidence and arrogance. And then the people that show that humility, that's where I was going with this,
Yeah.
are those that do the best because we work on a lot of C-suite positions and we often target recruit passive job seekers. So these are not people that are actively on the market, and sometimes they are. So I don't want to just put them in their own bucket. But when you're working with these people and they tend to think that they are the greatest thing,
Hmm.
made for the firm that they're hiring for, or it's to them a no-brainer that this should be their job. I think some of them lose a bit of that humility in the interview process, and it doesn't sit well on the hiring firm side because there are a lot of exceptional humans out there for all of the seats that exist today. So I think showing a humble confidence really bodes well. I think having the technical knowledge is certainly very meaningful in our business, meaning firms of particular strategies might seek someone with the technical knowledge of the strategies that they have within their organization.
Hmm.
And then largely, and probably becoming more and more prevalent, are people that can be additive to the culture that exists today within their organization. So people that can drive culture in a positive fashion, because there's a lot of emphasis about company culture when you have these Gen Z folks coming in that matters to them. So when you're thinking about succession planning and building a team that has strong leadership, I think culture drivers are also something that people are looking at.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, there's so many different directions we could go with that. And it, it's it is interesting to see. I mean, I have Simon, I don't know if you know Simon Sinek.
Oh,
He pops up on my LinkedIn, on
yeah.
my
Love
Instagram,
him.
everywhere, right? And it's all about he talks a lot about company culture and different things like that. And then the overconfidence as well. I mean, the it's interesting to see. I've had a couple, I mean, I think Now that you brought that up, we've had a few, maybe three other recruiters say that, and I didn't realize how important it is. And it's, you don't want to, nobody wants to work with somebody that's too confident to listen or over, maybe arrogant. It, might come off that way, even though they might not be that, right? And so I think it's a really important thing to keep in
Yeah,
mind, especially as it keeps coming up in conversation.
absolutely. I had, for a fun kind of example, probably not fun for him, but we
Yeah.
have a global CCO position that we were working on earlier this year,
Mhm.
and 6 individuals were brought into the initial process, and 4 of them were brought through and met several individuals, and all 4 did well.
Mhm.
They gave an assignment, just a take-home assessment to test their technical skills to decide who to bring forward. And 3 of them were put forward in the process, and the 4th person, they came back to us and said, "It was actually really surprising." I'm gonna give him a fake name.
Yeah.
"Ben really
Yeah.
didn't do well on the technical portion, but based on our interviews, we would have thought he would do great." And so when I went back to Ben to let him know that they weren't pursuing his candidacy any further because of the assessment, his reply was so, I think it embodies this sort of arrogance. He was like, "Well, I didn't put that much effort into it because they should know that I know how to do this." And I said, "Well, I
Interesting.
appreciate that you think that, Ben, but 3 other candidates showed up and they showed their work and they put in the
Yeah.
effort." So there's also this arrogance like, yeah, maybe you can, and maybe they are confident you could do it, but you didn't demonstrate that in the time that they needed to see it. So if that's
Mhm.
your approach to one part, a very small part of an interview process, what does that speak to the work you're going to do if you were to be hired full time? And I just thought it was a humbling experience for Ben.
Yeah. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that affects your relationship with fake name Ben, right? In future opportunities, right? If you have another, it was a CCO role that you're replacing.
Global CCO, huge
CCO.
position.
So
Yeah.
let's say you're doing that again in 8 months or a year. I'm assuming he's not going to come to the top of your list. He might go to the bottom of the list. Is that a safe assumption?
Mm, I would hope he's learned from this because I didn't I did not mince my words as to why he was not moving forward. It'd be one thing if I just said you didn't do well
Yeah.
and he didn't respond, but the admission to me, like I didn't put that much effort into it because I didn't think it would carry that much weight, or they should know that I can do this. I said to him, I was like, that was a poor assumption. So
Yeah.
I won't dismiss Ben altogether. That's
Right.
perhaps more my personality and nature. But will he be my first call? Probably also not. So somewhere in between. He's not written off in my book.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. You're a bad person if that is. What I'm trying to point out there is a lot of our clients, I think it's really good for them to realize how much weight a recruiter can give in the hiring process. And having that relationship with the recruiter, yourself, right? Making sure that, they're talking to you correctly and they're treating the entire thing like the job search, making sure they do everything they can and trusting your advice on it. That's kind of hopefully the undertone that I can support you in on that because I think, I would, I mean, not to put you in a bad spot, I would probably not call Ben, right? I would probably be like, you know what? I'm not going to stick my neck out for that guy.
Yeah,
Maybe not as soon, unless I have another couple conversations and clear up the air or something, just to make sure that he will put his best foot forward, right? So
that's totally fair.
yeah. So anyways, I'm not trying to put you in the bad spot at all. I'm I guess I'm more pessimistic, I guess, but I'm happy that you're more forgiving. Let's talk about some common mistakes. What are, and this actually kind of dives right into, it could just be a
Okay.
segue, honestly, in the same topic we've been talking about. But what are some common mistakes you're seeing with interviews for executive level candidates besides overconfidence?
I really think overconfidence is probably the biggest one. And
Yeah.
then poor preparation. Again, if
Mm.
individuals are passively on the market, sometimes they come into the interview with an attitude of, "You're so lucky I'm here. Tell me
Mm.
why I should want this job," versus preparing thoughtful questions for the interviewers, for the hiring manager, for all of the parties, whether they're above or below whomever, wherever this position sits. And I think having an attitude of just, "Y- you should want me," and proved and expecting a sales pitch from the hiring firm can be a big mistake for executives if they're more passively on the market.
Yeah.
My advice to everybody from junior to C-suite executives is your goal on a first round, second round interview is always to be invited back for another, whether or not you exercise the option to pursue that opportunity further, you want that decision, right? So make them fall in love with you. And you do
Yeah.
that through doing your diligence, having thoughtful and non-rehearsed and non-generic boilerplate questions prepared, and
Mhm.
showing a genuine interest in the organization and having that intellectual curiosity that everybody seeks no matter what the level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, doing your research has got to be huge. I mean, right? And but also that overconfidence. I mean, confidence is a fine line you have to walk. You can always talk to people that, they're great at what they do. I know people that are amazing at what they do, but they lack the confidence. And so it comes off, they might miss opportunities a lot because
Yeah,
they don't have the confidence to say it, but it's a real fine line because if you overstate it or overshow it, people are like, okay, maybe this isn't the best fit for the culture of our company because
right.
don't want you stepping on everybody's toes and causing a bunch of issues in the future as well. Um,
Absolutely.
so I think that's really interesting. Thank you for that point of view. Um, how have client expectations changed in recent years when it comes to hiring leadership roles?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would just say, again, I think they're looking for people that marry or will enhance the culture that exists in their world today. I
Hmm.
think they're looking for people that demonstrate an ability to, in my world, I'll just speak a little more specifically and I'll try and speak more broadly because I know that's probably most helpful. But in my world, for C-suite executives in legal and compliance, it's being able to distill complex situations or complex legal or regulatory matters to people that don't speak that language, whether they're investment professionals or accounting or finance professionals, being able to distill complex problems into language and a dialogue where somebody else can participate on equal footing is very important because you've got some super intellects out there who
Hmm.
can dissect and work with the problem, but if they can't communicate it effectively to the leaders that also need to participate in the decision making, it's not terribly helpful to have this intellectual superpower without the ability to, I think, break down information in a meaningful way to others in the organization. I think the other big thing is leadership skills and having the ability to mentor individuals and not be someone that just wants to hoard information and build their own importance within an organization by not delegating appropriately. So, one of the searches we're working on right now, that is a key thing that they're looking for in a leader is like, tell us how you have mentored individuals in the past. What was their
Hmm.
path? How did you ensure that they were growing professionally? How are you developing the people around you to better enhance your ability to work on the more strategic matters that we need you to handle here? And I think those are some of the key things that are driving some of the executive leadership skills and the executive leadership um, qualifications that our clients are looking for.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that. I don't know if this is a saying or how it goes, but it's more along the lines of, you don't really understand something until you can explain it at a third grade level or
Yes.
something,
Yes.
right? And so I think that's aligns right with what you're talking about, right? Of, hey, I just talked to no, I didn't talk to, I listened to a podcast of this really successful entrepreneur. He makes hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And he said, somebody asked him, how are you so successful working with other entrepreneurs? And he said, I explained it at an eighth grade level. He's like, it's really basic, and I explain it in a really dumb way, and people get it, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have to overthink it, and it sticks the first time. And so
Right. And they
I
don't
think
have
that's
to
a
second
huge
guess
thing,
their own
right?
intelligence. Exactly.
Yeah, if you're placing a global CCO, right, somebody with great background, solid background, if they can explain that and make sure that everybody that's looking at their brand, their presence, whoever they're speaking with can understand what they can do on a basic level, but it's advanced, right? Not like underselling themselves, right? I think it's crucial, right? So
Absolutely. We're
I'm
finding that for sure.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, let's shift gears a little bit more. I want to talk about your clients that you work with,
Sure.
right? What are some of the best practices you'd recommend if there's a potential client for you, an organization that wants to hire your organization, right? What's the best way that you'd recommend when partnering with a recruiter or recruiting firm to see the most success?
I think depending on who you're partnering with, that may change. In the instance of us and our clients, Having a foundational trust that A, I know who I'm recruiting, B, I know the talent pool, and C, I can discern between good, great, terrible, and poor
Hmm.
quality individuals is really important. That level of trust just helps drive the process forward.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and this actually happens a lot in my business because more or less I'd say 60% of the searches that we work on are newly created positions. So with the newly created position, there's a little bit of wiggle room up or down or sideways as to what the ideal profile may look like because we're not backfilling Jack's position. We need another Jack. It's, filling a gap and understanding the needs of the firm and how far can that person reach to be very effective, or how far experience could you hire somebody to get as much out of them as possible. So trusting that we can give you meaningful advice as to why you should look at this person, even though they're 2 years shy of your ideal years of experience. So you're looking for a 7-year person, but this person that graduated in 2020, they're 5 years out of school, is exceptional. They are punching above their weight class. You need to meet them
Yeah.
has served a lot of our clients quite well because it's not what they're expecting, but when they meet them, they're like, yes, that was it. So I think trusting that, especially once you have a cadence or have a relationship and a long-term understanding of the organization. So many of my clients are repeat clients. I've worked with them over the years. I've staffed up their entire legal teams or compliance teams. I know it works. And so
Mhm.
they really do trust me implicitly. So it's less advice for them because they know I know.
Yeah.
But for new ones, the more information you feed us and the more detail you give us about what are the real gaps, what are the real challenges, who's really going to succeed here, and what profiles have not, or what personality traits have not succeeded here, the more information you feed me, the more I can do on my end to tailor my recruiting efforts, as well as the people that I share with you as potential candidates that are much more on target.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes complete sense, right? I mean, the trust, I mean, I'm sure has a huge part to do with it. And just making sure
100%.
that you're trusting that they know what they're looking for, or they're trusting you as well to know, hey, this would be really helpful. These things and this person's a great fit, even though they might not fit every piece of what you're looking for, it'd actually be better for you in the end.
Yeah.
So
There's this, I think the other thing is because we see so many different teams and they're all in the same vertical, they're all in similar entities, that our clients are coming from a vantage point of their current experience and maybe two or three prior shops. Whereas
mhm.
I have hundreds of different vantage points of all of the different clients I've partnered with over the past. So trusting that I might have a little more knowledge, certainly not on the technical stuff. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions on a Form ADV, but I can tell you what profiles can seamlessly slide in or can slide in with a little bit of on-ramping to be just as effective, if not more effective than this quote unquote dream profile that you've drawn up in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope potential clients for you are listening and that they're understanding and will trust you to help them in the future with future placements. So I appreciate you taking the time to be on our podcast. Before we end it, I want to give potential clients, candidates who want to know more about you, your company, what's the best way for them to reach you or know more?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Andrea, and then
Mhm.
in parentheses, Annie Colabella. And I do a lot of posting there, so I shouldn't be too hard to find. My firm is Cardea Group, and our website is www.thecardeagroup.com. So you can also find information about our current opportunities and more about our team there as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you for being an amazing guest. We're
Thank you,
grateful that
Jesse. I
we've had you.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Hope you have a good one. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.